Look around the room. We're all different, aren't we? In America, our differences often put us at odds. But what I'd like to talk with you about today is not intended to be a partisan argument. I will show you today how a program developed almost 100 years ago will help us fight World War I, can help us solve most of our most persistent domestic problems today. Today we're going to talk about the history of the selective service system. We'll also talk about how expanding the selective service system to include both men and women can continue to assist the armed forces. We'll also talk about how the selective service system can help solve voter fraud problems, voter registration, and law enforcement issues. My main sources for this were the U.S. Selective Service System, the U.S. Federal Register, and CNN. First, let's talk about the history of the Selective Service System. The Selective Service Act was passed by Congress on May 18, 1917. It is authorized by Article 1, Section 8 of the United States Constitution, which says that Congress shall have the power to raise and support armies and provide and maintain a navy. It has been amended several times over the years, most notably in 1948, in response to post-World War II fears about the need for a large pool of men needed for a draft in the event of another large-scale war. This became the basis for today's modern system. The Selective Service System is an independent agency of the United States government. All males are required to register with Selective Service within 1 month of their 18th birthday for possible draft into the military if needed during a time of war. In 2013, the Government Accountability Office estimated that the national registration rate was approximately 89% nationally. This is actually an encouraging statistic. It means overwhelmingly, males are registering for selective service at a high rate, despite the fact that we have an all-volunteer force for over 40 years. So we know that we have an available pool of potential soldiers aged 18 to 26, even in the very unlikely event that they would be needed. Now let's talk about the current military drawdown, changes to women's roles in the military, and how the selective service would be needed. In our current situation, the military has to become smaller. With an ever dangerous world, we still need to ensure that we have people available to fight in the next world war if it should occur. Selective service should be continued to ensure that even with our all-volunteer force, our shrinking military has a backup plan. Women's roles in the world have changed, especially in the military. On January 24, 2013, Secretary of Defense Leon Panetta announced an end to the direct ground combat exclusion rule for female service members. Thousands of women have already found themselves in combat situations, and Secretary Panetta's announcement was hailed as, quote, a historic step for equality that recognizes the role women play in the military, by Senator Patty Murray, who leads the Senate Veterans Affairs Committee. Selective service could be expanded to include all males and females between the ages of 18 and 26. There are currently over 16 million males listed on the Selective Service Registry. Conservatively, that would give the United States a pool of approximately 30 million people ready to receive training should the country ever need them. We could still depend on a volunteer force. So let's assume if we revitalize the program with an initial registration drive that registered every person over 18 in America. Even if they are not fit for military service, what other things could we do with this information? I have a few ideas that are simple to implement but can pay huge dividends for our country domestically. Now let's talk about voter registration, voter fraud, and law enforcement. Data collected for selective service in the future, i.e. fingerprints, retinal scans, could at the same time be used to register people to vote. This would ensure 100% of the voting public was registered in an automated system. Voting could be done with a two-identification system, hard copy and fingerprint or retinal scan. This technology already exists for us to do this and would ensure everyone would only get one vote on election day. Selective Service records and DMV records are already linked to keep accountability of addresses. This information also works in reverse. If more people are registered with Selective Service, it helps law enforcement officials solve crimes. So let's review what we have talked about and summarize the proposal we've looked at today. First, we learned about the history of the Selective Service. Next, we talked about the benefits of expanding the Selective Service with the realities of having a smaller military. Finally, we have discussed several other benefits to expanding Selective Service, including a larger draft pool, including men and women, fraud-proof voter registration and voting, and increased information sharing between the Selective Service and law enforcement. We can all keep complaining about how our country is declining, or we can start doing something about it. This simple proposal will put us on the road to solving several divisive issues in our country. I hope you will consider what we have talked about today, and if you have any questions, I will be happy to answer them and discuss them with you after the briefing today. Thank you for your time.